All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. As always, it is a pleasure to have my partner in crime right here, Brother Cal, as we are going to be talking a little NBA basketball today.
Yes,
And
indeed,
the
indeed,
focus,
brother.
yeah, man, with the
Hey,
focus on Minnesota Timberwolves big Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, Cal, I
yes.
look at it like this. I look at Karl-Anthony Towns, and in my opinion, this guy has like immense talent. And I look at him play throughout his NBA career, and I just feel like that talent has not really like the potential is not even close to being fulfilled, man. What are your thoughts?
Well, first, I want to thank you for having me, and secondly, let's go back a little bit on Karl-Anthony Towns. All right. Now, see, he was a guy, coming out of the McDonald's All American game that was basically he was stamped to be an NBA All Star. He played with, I believe, the Dominican national team at 16, so he had some experience as far as playing on that level. And then, of course, he went to Kentucky. He was SEC Player of the Year, and I think he was a second team All America coming out of Kentucky. I think he did a one and done, if I'm correct. And he came into the league, and for his career, he's averaging 22 points and 11 rebounds. This year, he's at 24 and I think 11.7, a little bit higher than his career stats. And he also, in his rookie year, he was rookie of the month every single month. So in order to do that, that puts you up there with great people like Chris Paul, CP3. You got LeBron that did it. You got Tim Duncan that did it. So he's in great company as far as his talent is concerned. I think him playing in Minnesota and them not being able to put the proper pieces around him is what's kind of holding him back. I think, he's a guy that has flat out talent. He's going to give you the same thing every time. I think he shoots too many jump shots. That's just my opinion. But I think he's formidable, and I think he could actually be a lot better than what he is. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Karl-Anthony Towns and you look at some of the games that they play. And you sit back and you look at the stats, and I'm like, why is this guy taking 10 to 12 3-point shots a game? I mean, if Karl-Anthony Towns can knock down a 3-point shot, that's all well and good. But close to the basket, there's hardly anybody in the NBA who could stop him. I mean, you figure, he has the ability physically to be up there with Embiid, to be up there with Anthony Davis, to be up there with Nikola Jokic when you're talking about the best bigs in the game. But, he's not utilizing it. Definitely, I think part of it is, playing for that Timberwolves organization because there was a losing culture there. And I said this a couple of years ago when they had Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins there. Of course, Andrew Wiggins got traded to Golden
Right.
State. But you look
Right.
at it, both of these guys are like, you know what? I'm getting my 25 million a night, like each year. I'm getting my 25 points a night, and I'm good. And you'll sit back and you'll look at the final score. Minnesota will lose a game like 125 to 100, but then you look at the stats. Karl-Anthony Towns has 25 points, 12 rebounds. He's taking about 8 or 9 3-point shots, and you know what? It just looks like what? I got my points. I'm good. It's like he has himself on his own fantasy team there, and him playing that type of ball is not going to sit up there and lead to success. So, I mean, I know that, the Timberwolves had an ownership change today. We saw Alex Rodriguez buy into that group. Is that going to make a difference? I don't know. But the bottom line is, what he is doing is not winning basketball. And there's a difference between, putting up stats and winning. I mean, we've talked about this before with Russell Westbrook, in regards to the triple double. And it's the same thing with a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns. I know he had the, situation, family issues and stuff like that recently. And I mean, you can't make light of that because that is real life stuff.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I'm like, if you want to go out there and win at this level, you got to be able to do your thing. You've got to be able to elevate the people around you,
Absolutely.
and you have to be able to help everybody take their game to the
Right.
next level. I've
Right.
I've watched Karl-Anthony Towns' overall game, and as good as he is as a scorer, there's a lack of fundamentals there. For prime example, I watched the game last year. The Clippers were playing the Timberwolves in Minnesota, and Paul George came off of a screen, and the guy who was guarding Paul George got picked clearly. Karl-Anthony Towns, instead of him stepping up and putting a hand in the face of Paul George, Karl-Anthony Towns took several steps back. Paul George had a wide open 3-point shot that he made. That's fundamentals in regards to
It is.
basketball right there. And, you look at that right now. I know we've talked about it off and on with this current NBA where, there's such a focus on offensive ball and
Right.
lack of focus on fundamentals, especially at the defensive end of the floor. That right there comes to coaching, but it also comes to mentality. I haven't seen this guy jog back, on defense. And like the opposing team, they'll get an easy 2-point basket or easy look at the basket, and I'm like, listen, these are things that aside from coaching, you got to have that will to go out there and do. And I simply don't see it, and I think he's going to be one of those guys. He's going to average 20 and 10 for his career, but it's going to be a quiet 20 and 10 because they're not going to do anything.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. This situation kind of reminds me of Mitch Richmond. He was an all-star, give you 20, 25 a game, and especially when he left the Golden State Warriors and went to Sacramento. And I mean, he just languished over there. He was getting his money, he was getting his stats, but he didn't win anything until he came to the Lakers. So my point being, you could be as good as you want to be, and we were actually talking about Boston a little while ago. You could be as good as you want to be and get all your stats, but at some point, do you have to be a piece for somebody else to win? Does somebody have to be a piece to help you win? Somewhere along the line, there has to be a sacrifice. I think Karl-Anthony Towns is not in shape. This is my opinion. I don't think he's in shape. I don't think the professional part of being a basketball player, other than, you getting your stats, because, you're going to do what you do. But being in basketball shape and, be willing to step up and be the leader, because I don't look at Karl-Anthony Towns as a leader over there with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, he's been in the league quite a while now. Of course, the Timberwolves are not really good. And as you said, it's a losing atmosphere around that organization. But to me, and this is the new age athlete again. Okay, give me my 40 million. Long as I make my stats and whatever, at some point you're gonna want to win. And this is why you see the rush of all these people getting together on these super teams now, as we see, because people want to win. They say, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna put to the side what I want to do. I'm gonna either get a piece from somebody or become a piece for somebody. And to me, Karl-Anthony Towns is good enough to start your franchise around, but he has to get in shape and he has to work on those leadership qualities, because Minnesota, again, they're a young team. And this is what's missing from the NBA is the veteran leadership, somebody to teach you how to be a professional basketball player. So that way, what role you play, what role you can expect from your teammates. I look at a guy like Jimmy Butler. He's very talented. He's not a top 10 guy, but you know what makes him top 10 to me? His leadership. Because he's not going to let you sit back and not play hard, not get back on defense. He's going to hold you accountable. There's nobody in Minnesota holding Karl-Anthony Towns accountable for what he does on the court.
Yeah, and you took the words right out of my mouth, because if you go back to Jimmy Butler's brief tenure with Minnesota, and definitely that was because Tom Thibodeau was there, and of course Thibs loved them from their time together in Chicago. But Jimmy Butler, he's got a little dog in him, and
Yeah,
you're not gonna be on a team with Jimmy Butler and not play D. You're not gonna communicate.
right.
And the thing was, JB went there and JB wanted to win. Cat and Wiggins were just like, yeah, you know what? I'm just happy to be there. And it showed, because they got to the playoffs that year. They were the eighth seed. They got bumped out
Right.
by the
I
Rockets
remember.
in the first round. And
Right.
it was like, these guys are just there like, okay, I got a check and I'm good. And it's gonna take more of that if you're gonna be able to succeed, at that level. And for a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns, he can make the All-Star game. He can make the Olympic team, because that's the talent that he has. But
Right.
when you're in the locker room with those guys, and these guys are talking about, well, I was first team all NBA. I got a championship with this club. I got a championship with that club. you can't even say, yo, you got out of the first round yet. So like you really don't know what it takes to win.
Right.
And you know, it comes down to the individual because
Mhm.
you have to want to be coached up. And this is a problem, you know, we talked about it in a previous podcast where, you know, guys they just, you know, like from the AAU circuit, you know, the coaches have to do
Yeah.
what the players want. And
That's true.
whereas, you know, like these players, they're not being humble. They don't understand that. And there's a part of humility with this. These guys, he came in as a freshman at Kentucky and started. And then,
Right.
you know, he came in and was basically given the keys to the franchise as a 19,
Right.
20-year-old kid. And a franchise that really has not succeeded in regards to winning. I mean, the Minnesota Timberwolves have only got out of the first round one time, and that was that year in 2004 where they reached the Western Conference Finals. You know,
Right.
so like so that lets you know what we're dealing with here. And I mean, Kevin Garnett couldn't do it by himself, and of course, he was going up against like the likes of Duncan, Rasheed, Shaq, Chris Webber, Dirk. You know, the Western Conference, as far as the bigs went in those days, was stacked. But you know, with Cat right now, I mean, this is a situation where you need to step up and take the bull by the horns of this franchise, and you don't want to do it.
Well, I think it's maturity also. I believe Karl-Anthony Towns made an All NBA team. I think it was third once, but it was an All NBA third team one time. So he's getting recognized as a player, but he's not. He's a star, but he's not a superstar. And I think that's what a lot of people tend, to mix up in the league nowadays. They got guys, that are. I look at Damian Lillard as almost a superstar because he can't get his team to win. You understand? And I think once he figures out the ingredient to make them win and let them get, and play hard and get well into the playoffs, then we can look at him as a superstar. I mean, he made some good shots, but, to be looked at as a superstar, you got to make everybody around you better. It can't just be, the Karl-Anthony Towns show right now. And, I'm cool with just talking about him because, I want to hold him responsible as the best player on that team, the most notable player on that team. And the only people, that's like one of the only few players in the league that, you got to always make a game plan for because he's that good. He's probably the only guy on the Timberwolves that you're going to make a game plan for. If you contain him, you win the game. Just let everybody else do what they do. So at some point in time, and you knowing that and you being a leader, you got to say, well, okay, how do we work this out? How do I get better? How do we work this out? Because at the end of the day, it's almost like you're just going through the motions of playing basketball because that's what you do. That's what you know how to do. And at the end of the day, you got to be able at this point in time, because remember, he is young. He only played 1 year of college basketball. So he is young. So right about now would be the time if he had done his 4 years and came into the league, this would be the time that he would just be really getting to the swing of his career, which he actually is now. This is probably his best statistical year as a pro. All right. And he is rebounding the basketball. I think he's at like 1.8 blocks a game. He has to do better. A lot of the bigs, the reason why they're not getting the blocks and then they're not getting as many rebounds is because they're out at the 3-point line. Either you guarding a big that's shooting a three or you're shooting a three. So you're not there. And especially if you're the only anchor in your front court, he's trying to do everything. It's going to be tough. He's going to have to make some adjustments. And you took the money. You took the big money. So keeping that in perspective, I don't know what Minnesota is going to do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those, it's the gift and the curse. But I say it from the standpoint that, you know what, a lot of these guys, and it's all across sports. It's not just an NBA thing. But
Right.
guys want the big contract, but there is a price that comes with that big contract. And I'm not just talking about the financial price. The price is you have to be a leader. You have to be the face of the franchise. And if you are not willing to take on those responsibilities, don't take the bread. Because you know when you're one of these guys who's getting
I agree.
25 million and up per year, you know what? You have to be able to elevate your team. And you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, you know, there was a time, I can't remember the gentleman's name right now, their former general manager. I want to say it was David Kahn. I could be wrong. He
Mm-hmm.
complained about the fact that Minnesota had never had the first overall pick, in spite of the fact that they had the worst winning percentage in NBA history. Since that time, they've gone on to have the number one overall pick several times. We saw them
Right.
make the trade, to get Andrew Wiggins from
Mhm.
Cleveland because he was the first overall pick with Cleveland. Um,
Right.
Karl-Anthony Towns, was a high pick. This kid Anthony Edwards that they picked like this last year in the draft was also the first overall pick.
He's all right. He's actually okay. He's a decent player.
Yeah, but with that said, I'm saying it from the standpoint that when you get that opportunity to have that first overall pick, you have to go out there and get yourself a game changer. And I mean, granted, don't get me wrong, every first overall pick is not going to be Akeem Olajuwon. Every first overall pick is not going to be Shaquille O'Neal, Patrick Ewing, thing like guys like that.
Right.
But you still got to go out there and find guys that have an impact. And if you feel like you don't have that impact player available in that draft, trade that pick for somebody who will make that impact for you. But the thing is, it's all about the culture there, and just something that you talked about earlier on in this podcast, as far as like these young guys not knowing how to win. And I just think back where teams at one point drafted a quote unquote face of the franchise, they still had veteran players there to show him
Right.
what it took to win.
Right.
I
Right.
remember I remember Patrick Ewing's first couple of years with the Knicks. The Knicks still had Bill Cartwright. And don't get me wrong, everybody knew that the Knicks were going to take Patrick first overall and he was going to be the future of the franchise. But he
Right.
still had to practice against the Bill Cartwright. And of course, Patrick was a 4-year player under John Thompson at Georgetown.
That's correct.
Even with Shaquille O'Neal, as dominant as he was when he came into the NBA, he had Tree Rollins. You know what I'm saying? And this was Tree Rollins was a vet. He was a darn good shot blocker, and he knew what it took to
Yeah.
last in the
Decent.
NBA.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He's a
So
man's man. He's a man's man. You're
right,
right. Yep.
right.
Tree Rollins. Yep.
So it's just like, you have to have somebody there to show you the ropes. Jermaine O'Neal, Jermaine O'Neal basically went to Portland Trailblazer University because he sat on the bench, in Portland when they drafted him straight out of high school. But guess
Right.
what? He was behind, Rasheed. He was behind Brian Grant. And then finally, he started to do his thing, got traded to Indiana, and of course the rest is history. But my
Right.
point is, you gotta have somebody there to show you the ropes. And all of these teams, we've talked about this before, they want to go cheap. They want to go with these young guys. If they try to get the goons out of the league. But the bottom line is, how are you going to know what it takes to succeed if nobody is there to teach you what it takes to succeed? And you look at it right now, there's a fine line between putting up stats and winning. And that is something that Karl-Anthony Towns, and for what it said, nobody associated with this Minnesota Timberwolves franchise right now currently understands.
Well, I'll put it to you like this. First of all, Minnesota is in a small market. And the only way at this point in time you're going to watch the Minnesota Timberwolves is if they're playing against, your team, whoever your team may be, and the people that live in Minnesota. Nobody's breaking their neck to watch the Timberwolves. It's. And so with that being said, I think that plays a major part in it, playing in a small market. So Karl-Anthony Towns can kind of hide, because he's not in the spotlight as much as he was playing in LA or Charlotte or something. Even though Charlotte is a small market,
They're still in the
LaMelo made
East.
them must TV.
Right.
He made them must see TV. And to my point, yes, they're in the East. And on the West Coast, you got to take a look at a team like the Mavericks, who kind of, to me, in a sense, kind of sort of have the same problem that the Timberwolves have. Because the thing is, they don't have a steady veteran there to show these kids, Luka and Kristaps Porzingis and them, how to win, how to prepare. Again, Luka's another one. He's not in shape. You understand what I'm saying? And to me, it starts with that. Once you understand how to get in shape, and I tell this to anybody, if you play any type of organized sports on whatever levels, the first thing you learn how to do is you have to work out, and you got to dedicate yourself to that workout, not counting your workout with your team, not counting your shoot around. To me, a shoot around is not a workout. That's just what you're supposed to do. You understand? But to me, it starts with you getting yourself and your body together. And if you can be motivated and get yourself together and be motivated, you'll play better. And that attitude that you have from being motivated by your workout will rub off on others. And that's something that only a veteran that could be there would be able to explain. Now the coaches, so that goes back to the coaches and assistant coaches on the Timberwolves staff. I have no idea who those guys are, but I'm going to hold all of them accountable because they're not holding their star player accountable. All right, and a lot of this stuff really starts with the assistant coaches. Believe it or not, and those are the guys that help develop the players. So if I'm an assistant coach and I'm trying to develop you, we're gonna start with your workout habits and your eating habits, and then how you work out and work on your game. Because if you're the best player on your team, there has to be some type of challenge for you in practice. These guys, these new age ball players, they don't look like some of them don't look like they're really being challenged in practice. So that means that, again, that starts with the organization getting better talent. All right, getting better assistant coaches around these guys. If you look at some of the stats of some of the teams that's winning, I look at a guy like Lawrence Frank, who was a head coach with the Nets. He's an assistant coach with the Clippers, and he knows how to coach players down as an assistant coach. I think that that's very, very, very important. Even if we're losing, we're going to keep an up atmosphere. We're going to hold everybody accountable for what they do. And it begins and ends with Karl-Anthony Towns, brother.
Listen, I definitely agree. I mean, when you look at any championship team at any level in any sport, your best players are typically your hardest workers. And, it makes the job of the head coach a lot easier because you know what? If my best player is going to do that, everybody else is to fall in line. I mean, staying in the NBA realm, that's what made the San Antonio Spurs so successful for so many years. Tim Duncan was their best player, but Tim Duncan was also their hardest worker. And Tim Duncan was
Agreed.
able to take the butt chewing that he constantly got from Greg Popovich, and it was kind of like, well, you know what? If Tim Duncan can do it, so can everybody else. That allowed the Spurs to have success, for so many years. I know that there are
All
some
right.
people, who want to tend to question the legacy of Michael Jordan, but guess what? You never had to question Mike's work ethic. You never had to question Mike's, practice habits, this, that, and the third. I mean, Mike went out there, Mike did what he had to do. The same can be said for any of the greats: Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, Dr. J, Kobe Bryant. We could keep going down the list right here. But you know what? Your best players have to be your hardest workers.
Yeah, and you can even say that about Charles Barkley too, because with the type of body he had, that did not stop Barkley from playing hard every single game, every single possession, and he was in your face, whether he was your teammate or you was or the opposition, the ops. You know what I'm saying? And this is why I love guys like Charles Oakley. Again, I'm not a Knicks fan, but I'm a big fan of Charles Oakley because with limited talent, he was able to average 10 points and 10 rebounds a game for his career. But here's the funny thing about it. He set the tone for how the team was going to play that game against whoever by being what he was as far as being a man's man. And, it usually takes somebody around you in your life to make you that type of player. But you combine that with, let's say, a Karl-Anthony Towns skill set, man, you got a Hall of Famer right there. You put that mentality into that kid and you tell him, listen, and this is what made KG great. He had all the talent in the world, but he also had the heart and he worked hard and he pushed himself harder than anybody could push him, even knowing he was going to lose in Minnesota. He knew he was going to lose. He knew he was going to lose. But you see, you're playing for your reputation.
Right.
And I've been in certain situations where I've had to play on teams and be counted to, I knew we were going to lose, but I still got to average 25, 30 points a game. I was able to do that, but I also played hard. You know what I'm saying? Because then when you don't play hard, you tend to get injuries. You play down to the level of your competition. And I think when Karl-Anthony Towns takes some nights off, he could score his points and then take the rest of the night off. What is that saying to his teammates?
Listen, it's saying, you know what, I don't care. And, this is why the Minnesota Timberwolves have the record that they do. I mean, they're not even close to be competing, for that final spot in the West. And I mean, you look at it on paper, the Timberwolves have more talent than the Spurs from 1 to 15 on that roster. And I know
Right.
the Spurs, like they're in the midst of like a slump right now. They've fallen out of the top 8 spots in the West, but they still have a fighting chance to make the playoffs. Minnesota does not. And I know that, Cat missed some time. I know D'Angelo Russell hasn't been there this year, but still, you have to compete. And you mentioned KG before. KG, like you said, in spite of the lack of talent around him, he still brought it. Why? Because guess what? Every night in the West, he had to go up against Rashid, Shaq, Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki, Karl Malone, Chris Webber. Okay. And law of averages, when KG was going to be at the All-Star game, KG was going to be in the locker room with all of these guys. So you know
That's right.
what? So it's like, these guys knew the deal as far as like, okay, KG ain't got the talent around him, but you know what? KG made them work every single night. And
Right.
and
Right.
even though that they had a struggle for so many years as far as getting out of the first round, it wasn't because KG wasn't putting in that work, because KG came to play for 82 games, and then KG always came to play in the playoffs. So like you can never take that away from him.
That's right.
Carl Anthony Towns had one moment on the playoff stage in the NBA. And it's one of those where you hardly remember that he was there, because they won one game that series, and the reason why they won that game was because of a man that is no longer with the team, and that's Jimmy Butler. And
That's right.
it's the mentality, because
Yep.
Jimmy Butler wasn't going to be the third banana behind Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins in Minnesota. Jimmy Butler
Right.
was not going to be the third banana behind Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid in Philly. But then you see Jimmy Butler go to Miami, has the same mindset as a guy like Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra. And,
That's right.
people can like question as far as like it was a playoff bubble, this, that, and the third. Listen, he shut Giannis down in the second round.
Jimmy bust they behind, man. Jimmy literally got them there by himself.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, and again, that's a mentality. That's the hunger. That's the dog. That's that, over my dead body mentality. And, a lot of these guys, they don't know what it takes to that level. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a pro athlete. Wasn't in my prime. Darn sure won't be now. But with that said, you got
Right.
to have a mentality, you know what, over my dead body. And you see it, everybody that's at that level, they have talent, they have skill, but you still have to be able to work on your skill and hone your craft. And I don't think
Absolutely.
I don't think Karl Anthony Towns, number one, has done it. I don't think he wants to do it. And it's going to be a situation where he's going to be one of those players that if he doesn't change his mentality, what's going to happen? You know what? He's going to be in that woulda, coulda, shoulda category as far as like,
Mhm.
what? He had the potential, but you know what? He didn't want to work on it. He didn't want to live up to it. And, pretty soon he's going to find himself having a shorter career than expected because of that.
I totally agree, and I'll tell you, I know a lot of professional athletes, and we don't really talk about that as much. We may talk about when we're younger, but I know for a fact that these guys, were able to, make careers out of playing basketball, and I know they worked hard, and these were guys that weren't the superstars, but it takes a lot to make it to the league. And when you get there, it's harder to stay there. You know what I'm saying? And so for some people, it's easy to get there, but then they'll find themselves counted out. When people get to see your habits and what you do and what you don't do, and they're up close and personal, that's really going to round the shape what type of basketball player you're going to be. Because if I'm your coach and I'm sitting there and I'm allowing you to, we're in a rhythm, we're going back and forth, we're in a rhythm going to the basket. All of a sudden, you go take 3 straight unauthorized free shots. I'm sitting you down because that's not what we're doing. You understand what I'm saying? That's, if we're going to the rack or we're doing things, something is working, the pick and roll is working. Well, I stop doing a pick and roll if they can't stop it to let Karl-Anthony Towns shoot a 3, an unauthorized 3 that has nothing to do with anything, and basically break the rhythm, ultimately let the other team back into the game. Because once one takes a 3, then he's going to take a 3, he's going to take a 3, and it is absolutely incredible, bro. And I'm going to tell you like this. I wish the kid nothing but the best on his career, but I think he needs to get in shape, and I think he needs to just work a little harder.
Listen, I totally agree with you on that. That like just, talk about the coaching aspect. That's definitely something that's missing from the game. Nowadays it's like you make a mistake. Okay, you stay out there because, you're a starter. or you got to get your minutes or like analytics or whatever in the world it is. But
Right.
it's taken away from the coaching aspect. You know, a Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich didn't have a problem sitting down Tim Duncan, Manu, and Tony
Any of them.
Parker, all,
Any of them. Any of
all
them.
all at the same time. You know what I'm
That's right.
saying? Pat Riley
So
didn't care.
no problem about it.
Yeah, Pat Riley didn't care who you were either.
Yeah.
You're gonna do it my way, or you know what, it's not getting done. But now it's like too many of these coaches at all of the levels, they got to try to figure out how they're gonna appease their players, and you know what, that's not winning basketball. So like we said, Cat's gonna continue to put up his numbers. He's in that Russell Westbrook category. Russell Westbrook gets you a triple double, but guess what? You lose. And it's the same thing with Karl-Anthony Towns. You're gonna keep looking at the stat sheet. You're going to see this guy getting 25 and 15, and you're going to continue to see the Minnesota Timberwolves lose by like 15, 20 points each night.
Yeah.
Brother, they ain't gonna get it done. That's not a recipe for success at the NBA level, and it's not a recipe for success at any level, man.
It's like it's called having some pride, brother. And I'll tell you this, yo. As an ex basketball player, I felt that anytime I got on the court, I'm playing to win. All right. I don't want to be friends with nobody. I'm not trying to show you, regardless if your team might be better than mine, I'm not trying to show you that I'm just there for the ride. I'm coming in there to try to beat something off you and make you remember, win, lose, or draw, my attitude towards the game, which I think is important. And with that being said, it's called learning how to be a professional. The guys I learned from, you know, we had to play the game a certain type of way. You understand, which was through fundamental basics and working, inside out, not outside in. So if you're a big, you need to get up on that block and you need to go take them 1,000 shots from each side of the block. You know what I'm saying? When the summertime and it's time for you to work on your game. And again, the Timberwolves are a sorry franchise, and I think that maybe one day they'll get it together, man, for their sake. But Karl-Anthony Towns, like I said, I wish him, much success and health.
There you have it, folks. And once again, I want to thank my brother Big Cal, Cal Wonder
You're
God,
welcome, brother.
for chiming in, and dropping those good vibes for us. You can always check Brother Cal out on Citywide Sports on Facebook. If you're not a part of that group, definitely do yourself a favor and look up Citywide Sports on Facebook. You can check
Thank you,
me out
brother.
on Facebook as well on the Sports
Absolutely.
Depot 365. You can also check me out on Twitter at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always
Yes, sir.
say, if you follow me, it'd be my pleasure to follow you right back. Also, if you have not subscribed to this channel and you like what you're hearing, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. So, Brother Cal, once again, it was a pleasure. We have to do
Absolutely.
this again real soon, as there's plenty to still talk about, brother.
Thank you for having me, Wayne.
All right, man. Be well.
You too. Peace out there.